Welcome into Florence Barleycorns. It is the Cooper Football Show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers and others. I'm your host, Tom Gamble, for tonight as we look back at Friday night and the victory 21-14 for the Jaguars over Ryle in the Skyline Chili Crosstown Showdown, snapping an 8-year, 9-game skid against Ryle. And it was really a tale of two halves. We'll talk about all that went on in that game. But first, let's preview tonight's show. It is a dime to donate, thanks to the fine folks here at the Florence Barleycorns. We have our special guest, Evan Dennison, who is on the sidelines and covers Northern Kentucky sports for Link NKY. We'll talk to MVP of the game, Cam O'Hara, along with Dax Bolen, a little offense, a little defense. And we'll preview this week's game on the road at Campbell County. But first things first, let's look back to Friday night and the win, 21-14. Weird game, weird night. Weather, it started with some thunderstorms prior to, which worked their way out. I think some people are still waiting for a beverage in the concession line. But it was perhaps the biggest crowd. Is this official? Was it the biggest crowd ever to watch a Cooper home football game? Is that accurate, sir?
That's very accurate, yes.
Yeah, it was a great, the atmosphere. I mean, when you talk about just a great high school football game, it had everything. I mean, it had the Cooper first half and the 14-0 lead where if you're a Cooper fan, you're thinking, hey, man, we're not only going to beat Ryle, we might roll them tonight. And then all of a sudden you come out, Ryle makes some adjustments. They get on the board, they miss the extra point, but then they wind up tying it, go for the 2-point conversion. And then it looked like they might have even had it gone to overtime, might have even had the momentum, the muff punt, and then the O'Hara to Isaiah Johnson, what turned out to be the game-winning touchdown pass, and 21-14 the final. So before we get to some of the happenings of the game, how does it feel, just to beat Ryle finally, right? And what was your message to the team after the game and then today when you I know you get together Saturday, but today as you get ready for another week?
Yeah, I think the big thing is enjoy it. It's been a while, so you know it's always enjoyable to beat one of your rivals. But you know what we said Friday night was enjoy it. When we came in Saturday, we said we have to continue to move on. Ultimately, our kids have a much bigger goal than just beating Ryle, and that's kind of the focus that we want to instill in our kids and keep that focus with our kids. So we enjoyed the win. It was a great win, and I would say the thing that made that win so special was it was a really good football team. Not only is it a rival, but Ryle's one of the top teams in Northern Kentucky and one of the top teams in 6A this year. So they got a lot of athletes. They got a lot. Their defensive line is probably the best defensive line we'll face all year until late in the playoffs. So, it was a really good win for us.
So you mentioned it. Let me pony on that because obviously, yes, beating Ryle, your district. Not when I say district, I mean obviously Boone County School District rival. Somebody you hadn't beaten in a while, but you have aspirations for this team to continue and to win a state championship, right? So when you look at that, if I'm just glancing at the numbers, I go, okay, Cooper outgained Ryle 356 to 246. You force 5 turnovers. You only turn it over once, and yet you look and it's tied 14-14. So how do you, when you look at that, I know you've looked at the film and watched that, talk about, kind of going from dominating really the first half to then flipping the table a little bit in the second half, and what did you take away from winning a close game like this?
Well, 2 things. First off, when you looked at the first half, we had multiple opportunities to kind of make that 14-point or 21
extend the lead even greater. Yeah.
So going in at halftime, we told our kids we knew we were going to get a run with those guys in the second half, and one of the biggest things I think we took away from and what we talked to our kids about 2-3 years ago. I mean, we talked about this last week. Every year it seems like it comes down to 1 or 2 plays, and this year we were finally able to make those plays. And when you look at the maturity of our team, up 14-0, having all the momentum, giving up 14 points, and one of those, a couple of them were broken plays. The one we just had blown coverage, another one we had them 3rd and long, and we let the quarterback, we over pursued, and he broke off a big run. So, we gave up a couple big plays, but our kids continue to stay focused. They didn't panic, and they made a play when we needed to make a play to get the win.
Now, I know when you look at last year's game and you didn't win, you ran for 35 yards. We talked about that. You'd have taken 35 yards on Friday night. Now, granted, it factors in quarterback sacks, but 22 attempts for minus 17 yards. You're not going to win many football games with those numbers. And I got to tell you, I thought Cam O'Hara, 25 of 41, 356, the 2 touchdown passes. He ran for another one. He was sacked 4 times, but honestly, were it not for his evasiveness, he was under constant duress. He probably could have been sacked double-digit times, which is not something you want, obviously. Ryle's front, Dylan Smith, Jake Savage, their front seven's probably better than any. Highlands will bring a good one, but I think you'll be hard-pressed to find one that's any better than that. What did you learn about Cam? Not that, he's thrown for what? 7,000 yards, 6,000 yards, and 77 touchdowns, and he's only a junior. But what did you learn about his playmaking ability that you maybe didn't already know on Friday night?
I think he matured in the area that he stayed in the pocket. He took some shots Friday night, but there was a couple times he stayed in the pocket, delivered a great throw, took the hit. Years past, he would have been trying to scramble. He would have felt the pressure and try to scramble, throw the ball away. And so it's a maturity process. And, he's in year 3 of starting for us. And every year, and to be honest with you, every game he continues to get better.
I thought 2 guys, again, that continue to play good football, and they both had over 100 yards receiving, and that was Isaiah Johnson, Jaden Combs, who I thought had an outstanding game. And you weren't able to do much in the run game, but then you look on the flip side, on the defensive side, Campbell with a big game, 7 tackles, a couple interceptions, Isaac Brown with an INT, Dax Bolen, 6 tackles, the interception that sealed it. Ultimately, you were able – I thought your defense – and I don't know that this is as good of a Ryle offense, but nonetheless, I thought your defense played pretty consistently throughout the game and really slowed them down. Yeah, sure, you had a couple plays where it got away, but I thought defensively, when you can hold a team like that to just 14 points, that says something about maybe the maturity of your defense.
Yeah, and I think coming into that game, the thing we were most worried about is them running the ball and just lining up and pounding the ball right at us. And, we did a really good job of taking that away, taking the run away. I mean, they had a couple, carries where they picked up 6-7 yards. But for the most part, we were keeping them at 2-3 yards with a defense that was really kind of outmanned, size-wise up front. So, our kids battled. They played well. They played tough in there. Our linebackers did a great job of pursuing and filling. So, and like you said, Campbell at the safety position, I mean, he's the most underrated kid we got on the defensive side of the ball.
When you look at this week and you get ready to travel on the road, you get to go down US 27, take on Campbell County. 7 o'clock is the kickoff there, and you're 3-0. You're ranked number 2 in the state, 5A behind defending state champ Bowling Green, number 1 in Northern Kentucky. And, this is a Campbell County team that's got a win over Scott. Really hung in the Beechwood game until pretty much into the latter stages. And I know Lucas Anthrop, their quarterback, went out, did not play this past week against Highlands. Highlands shut them out 34-0. But, this is a Campbell County team. You've won 3 in a row. You've won 4 of the last 5. Last year, 38-14. It was another 295 yards passing, 4 TDs. You had Isaiah Johnson, Austin Alexander over 100 yards each receiving, a touchdown each. Keegan Mayer picked up a TD on the ground. And also receiving-wise, how do you stay focused? Because when you're a team that is at the top and winning, and kids aren't dumb. I mean, they see a team like this and they expect to win, what you want them to expect to win. But how do you avoid, you've got at Campbell County, then home against Great Crossing, how do you avoid that trap, especially coming off a big win over Ryle?
Yeah, well, first off, the tape doesn't lie. When we go in and watch film, Campbell's a really good football team. It was 21-20 going into the fourth quarter against Beechwood.
Right, wound up 42-20. They pulled away a little bit.
And then last week they went into Highlands, really outmanned, took their best wide receiver, had to move him to quarterback. So, obviously they weren't as comfortable with what they were doing offensively, but they still had some opportunities. They just turned the ball over. They take away those turnovers, and it's a different ball game. So, I think we've been trying to show our kids, and I think our kids are able to see it on the film, that this is a really good football team we're playing. They're big up front. They're physical. They got some playmakers on the outside. So, if we come in and we overlook these guys or we don't come out and play, we're going to get beat Friday.
Well, they play a tough schedule, too. I mean, Brian Weinrich, who's their coach, and he won a state title at Highlands, 26 seniors on their roster, 6 returning starters on defense, 5 on offense. So you're right. They do have some experience. You're on the road, and anytime you're on the road, I don't care where you go, you're not at home. So, but before we get to that, I do want to discuss the crowd and the atmosphere on Friday night, because it was pretty incredible looking over and seeing kind of the ebb and flow of the game. And to me, it's really cool when both teams have a big crowd, but you've got to really love the support. We've talked about this, but boy, you saw it Friday night. The students that were able to kind of revel in the win and come on the field, and I thought that was a really cool moment. And it just was a big-time win, a big-time atmosphere, and it's got to make the kids feel great when they look across at the stands and see the band, the students, the parents and fans of the Cooper High School community coming out in full force.
And, first off, sometimes you have big crowds and people just sit there and they really don't get into the game. I think we sold close to 3,000 tickets, and that's not counting all the passes and that we had. And there was 3,000 people up there cheering. So, it was a great environment for both sides. A lot of going back and forth. And as you said, it was kind of the tale of two halves. First half, our people were really excited. Second half, it was the Ryle people. But, it was a great atmosphere, and we've talked about this. People say if you win, people will show up. But we've had some lean years where, we've still had a great following. But, this is taking it to the next level. And we tell our kids all the time how blessed we are with the support that we got from the parents and the community and the schools. So we're very fortunate with where we're at.
All right, well, there you have it. Cooper wins 21-14 over Ryle on Friday night. Jaguars off to a 3-0 start, and now we'll find out what Evan Dennison thought of the game. He covered it for Link NKY. We'll also find out from him also about some of the other teams in Northern Kentucky. We'll talk and go around and talk a little Northern Kentucky high school football. Cam O'Hara, Dax Bolen, a couple players will be up a little later talking about the big win over Ryle and their individual contributions on both sides of the football. So it's the Cooper Football Show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers and others like Evan Dennison, which will continue momentarily live from the Florence Barleycorns right here. All right, welcome back to the Florence Barleycorns. It is segment number 2 of the Cooper Football Show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers and others, including my guest this week from Link NKY, Evan Dennison. He was on the side, roaming the sideline, covering the game on Friday night, and does a great job of covering Northern Kentucky high school. So we'll start with Friday night. So 9 in a row for Ryle going into that game, and 14-0 at the half. Be honest with me. Now you're watching the game unfold. What'd you think at halftime?
This one could get ugly quick. You look at the yardage. Cooper had them tripled up in yardage. Ryle couldn't get anything going, really. And to be honest, I thought Ryle was fortunate only being down 14-0 at the half. It could have been a little bit worse. But yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
Cooper did miss a couple of scoring opportunities that could have padded the lead. Mm-hmm. So in the end, though, you cover high schools. You know how big it is sometimes for a team. It's like an albatross when you can't beat somebody. How big of a catalyst do you think? Obviously, Cooper made it to the 5A state final. They want to go back and take the next step. How big of a win, confidence-wise, do you think Friday night can be just moving forward?
It's big. Like Coach Borchers said, it's something that they, it's a step in the process, but it's not something that, they call like their state championship. It's a big rivalry matchup for the kids. A lot of these kids grew up together, probably played, pee-wee football together growing all the way up. So, that plays the big factor, I think, in a game like that. And you mentioned like maybe a trap game moving forward. That's where you see where that comes from. What do they do the next week building off a tight win, a confidence-boosting win like that?
All right, now you pick a top 10 every Monday, regardless of class. So you're right, there are advantages if you're a larger school, but give me that you want to go in reverse order or you want to go 1 to 10?
I think they'll like number one.
Okay, number one would be?
That's going to be Cooper.
Okay.
And that's based off their body of work.
They're very popular, number one. All right.
Yeah,
now, did you do that because you were coming out here tonight, or is that legit?
They've been number one since week one.
Right.
You make a state championship game, considering what they had coming back. To me, it was a no-brainer. They're number one.
All right, hang on. Let me see. I haven't looked at it yet, so let's see how well we would agree.
Okay.
Your number two is probably going to be Highlands.
No doubt.
All right.
Yep.
So there's two. And based that on, naturally, they've been pretty impressive early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, there was a question, how Rio Littmer would do at quarterback coming in for Brody Banke, but, they've had some issues the first few weeks in the passing game, but last week they seem to have picked that back up, and, that offensive line is fierce. So I think that's what really sets them aside from a lot of other teams up here in Northern Kentucky.
All right, so number three, I could make a case for Beechwood or Ryle. So I'm going to go undefeated. I'm going Beechwood.
Yeah, and Ryle was number three the week before.
Okay.
But with the loss, I think it drops them a little bit. You know how rankings work.
Sure.
So once a team does lose, it drops them a bit. And I thought Beechwood's win over Dixie was rather impressive.
All right, so give me the rest, 4 through 10.
Okay, so we got Ryle at 4.
All right.
I think, they're pretty firm there, and they have an argument there to be in that top 3 as well. Number 5, I think Covenant Catholic with that impressive win over Simon Kenton puts them there. And I put Newcath at 6. What they've done early on,
right,
beating Lloyd by 2 touchdowns, dominating the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Thoroughbreds are a solid ball team for a 1A football club.
And I was going to say, especially from a 1A perspective, I mean, they've got to be somebody around the state to take a look at.
And they've been super close the past 5 years under Coach Lickert. They've made the quarterfinals every year. So they're there. And they seem like they have the pieces this year. Emmanuel Miles has really done well at quarterback. And they've got pieces around him that can get it done. And they've looked really impressive. And their next 3 weeks is we're going to see what they're really made of.
Now, are we going to struggle a little bit going 7 to 10 here?
Yeah, it's tough. And I think these could be interchangeable. And I think these next couple weeks, you're going to really see some separation from these teams. So 7, I put Simon Kenton. Kind of a letdown on Friday.
Sure.
Pretty simple put. Number 8 was Dixie Heights.
Okay.
Number 9 was Campbell County. I think a very pesky team. And then 10 was Connor with Lloyd Memorial right there on the edge of getting in there.
Well, and I wonder how many people realize there was a huge victory for the state of Kentucky this past week. And that is Boyle County, which is the defending 4A champ that handled Covenant Catholic relatively easily. They went to Northeast Ohio and pounded Lakewood St. Edward, which is a perennial D1 state champ in Ohio, and quite frankly, one of the top 10 teams in the country. That's just the volume of victory there surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, and Boyle County is a public school. It's a county school. It's not like
now they got a couple kids that are back that were once. They're not devoid of talent, shall we say? But nonetheless, you're correct because Lakewood St. Ed is a private school. Mm-hmm. Pretty impressive win.
Studs all over the field for Boyle. It impressed the nation so much.
Yeah.
They moved up to number 14 in the country on Max Preps.
How about that? So go back to the Cooper Ryle game. What if you had to, when you look at it, especially Keys down the stretch and Cooper won the game? Obviously, what impresses you the most from what you've seen so far from Cooper?
Cooper, we knew what they were going to bring offensively this year with what all they had coming back. Cam O'Hara obviously is a next level college. He's going to play in college. He's going to get his college paid for to play football. We knew what, Isaiah Johnson could bring to the wide receiver position. Austin Alexander out there out wide. His hands are, bar none, some of the best in the state. And, that receiving core they have, Keegan Mayhew back at running back. The only issues that we thought were on the offensive line that we just didn't know, just due to inexperience. What stuck out for me for them, their defense has been lights out. On top of forcing 5 turnovers on Friday, those first 2 weeks, they allowed 1 touchdown, and that was in the last second of a running clock game. So I think the defense, to me, is what really has stuck out. And that first half performance on Friday, they were pretty dominant defensively. Yeah,
I think, and a lot of times when you have an offense with so many superlatives every week, you do tend to overlook how good a defense could be. But, they say defense wins championships, and when you have an offense like that, should it ever have an off night, you're going to have weeks where you have some turnovers, a few miscues. I've been impressed with the defense as well, and I thought really against Ryle. And I think they probably against Ryle faced a front both sides of the ball that's probably as good as any they're going to face this year, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and then you look at, Cam O'Hara got the player of the game, but I think it easily could have went to Ryle Campbell as well, who not only had 2 interceptions, but 8 tackles as well. And, Coach Borchers has raved about him in the offseason and raved about him again after Friday night's game, and just how underrated of a player he is and what he brings to that defense.
Yeah, and I think that's, and we're the ones who kind of picked the MVP. And it was one of those where when you look at the numbers, 25 of 41, 356, and a couple TD passes, a TD run. But you're right, we did debate defense because, a defense when you're holding a Ryle team to just 14, it was pretty impressive. So when you look down the rest of the season for COOPER, we can do this. They can, coaches and players. You can already circle a few weeks from now that Highlands in Fort Thomas. Obviously, last year was a crazy regular season game, 58-51, won by Highlands. Much different game in the postseason in Fort Thomas in the state, what were the state semifinals. When you see Highlands and you look at COOPER, does this have the makings of those were 2 great games? This looks like another one coming up.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think when we saw the schedule releases, when they came out in March, April, May, June, when each team account was putting out, their schedules on Twitter, you look for that game and you're like, okay, September 27th, that's the game.
So I know you're coaching your son's football, is that right? So what age is he?
Second grade.
Second grade, all right. So what positions he play?
He's an offensive tackle and middle linebacker.
All right. Who's he play for?
We live in Batavia, Ohio, so it's West Claremont Youth Football League.
All right. So there you go. Yeah. So how much do you enjoy covering Northern Kentucky high school sports?
I love it. I came from Maysville, Kentucky. I worked for the Ledger Independent there.
Yeah, so Richard Skinner, you followed in the path of Skinny. He told me that today, in fact. He said, make sure you mention that he was in Maysville. Yeah. So, and what, I know Skinny loved it down there. I mean, he loved covering it down there, but then he obviously made his way up here. And what is it about Northern Kentucky high school sports that you enjoy the most?
Football. Football's unreal up here. I mean, every week there's marquee games. Each week I've got 4 or 5 games that I got to choose from and see, oh, man, which one do I pick? Where do I go? I think that's what really sticks out. Maysville, Mason County, a lot of people know their basketball, their rich tradition of what they brought with Chris Lofton, Darius Miller, state championships. But around here, football is second to none. And, I'll put this up with Louisville and just the amount of quality of teams there are in this just little 3-county area.
Well, when you look at football this year, which are the teams that you think, and it's okay to include Highlands and COOPER if that's the way you feel, which are the teams you feel have the best chance of competing to win a state championship in the various classes?
Yeah, and Beechwood, obviously, they're in Class 2A. They're looking for title number 18, so they're going to be in the mix. And like I mentioned earlier, Newcath, what they've done early on this year, I think they're going to be a force in 1A. And kind of some sleeping giants maybe is maybe Newport, with Coach Paul Wiggins there at the helm, and they're going to get to play their first home game in, I think, 2 years here this Friday, so that's exciting for them. I think they've got a team that can be pretty dangerous too.
Covcath, I guess when you're in with Boyle County, you just kind of say, well, let's try to get there, right? When people saw Covcath 0-2 and they saw Simon 2-0 and they looked and said, man, could this be a 0-3 I think Covcath's going to be fine and be just better as the year goes on. Do you have that same evaluation?
Yeah, Friday gave them, I think, a big jolt of confidence. And, we'll see the next 2 weeks. They got Dixie here this week and then the big one with Beechwood the following week. So I think a win like that, it boosts a young team's confidence. They had to replace 25 seniors, and I don't care, what program you are. That's hard to do for anybody.
You mentioned that game. That'll be part of the Skyline Chili Crosstown Show. Now, we always pick a couple Northern Kentucky games, and COOPER Ryle was a no-brainer, and Beechwood Covcath. The great game last year where Beechwood was up 21-0, and Covcath came back. You look at this COOPER team, a final question for you on COOPER is they have so many talented players, and you mentioned guys playing in college. There's going to be a number of guys playing in college. Obviously, Austin Alexander's committed to North Carolina. Cam O'Hara, I think, is going to be he's only a junior, D1. They've obviously got some other guys. When I think this has the chance of being they finished 12-3 last year, made the state final. I think they can even be better this year. This is a pretty good 2-year run, and I think we're going to see a lot of these guys playing on Saturdays down the road.
Without a doubt. Isaiah Johnson picked up an offer from West Point, I think I saw today, so congrats to that young man. That's pretty awesome to see.
That is. That's very cool. Yeah.
And that's a question I asked Coach Borchers before the season. What is this like having these colleges come out and coming to watch your kids, coming to talk to you about these kids, and that's what coaching's all about. You want to get these kids to a next level. You want to get their education paid for, whether it be through academics or athletics. And
I got to be honest with you. You got good players at the high school level because with the transfer portal being what it is today, it says they think a lot of you if they're willing to come and watch you and offer you as a high school kid. Because there are some college coaches anymore don't even do it. I mean, they just use the portal. And I'd be remiss, we're talking football primarily, but you at Link NKY, I know you cover a lot of different sports, and you do a team of the week, and you do some of that kind of stuff. Talk a little bit about that, because I know one thing about Northern Kentucky, people enjoy following high school sports, football predominantly in the fall, then basketball, but they like following all the others too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%. And you look at just the other sports in general. I mean, volleyball, you've got two state powers here in our own backyard with Notre Dame and St. Henry. And, Ryle's got a pretty solid program too. And then there's a couple others that are, working their way up. So volleyball in the area is amazing. It's really good. Soccer, there's high quality there too. And cross country, I mean, it's insane how good and how much high quality these programs are when you consider how many state championships just over the last 3-4 years that these schools have won in cross country.
And give a final little plug here for Link NKY for all the stuff that you do. What are some things that, if you're into Cooper football and you're into high school football in Northern Kentucky, what are some weekly staples that you want folks to pay attention to?
Yeah, Monday's a big day. This is the day we put out our top 10 for football, and thanks to our sponsor, Crown Point Remodeling, for that. And then we do our Team of the Week and put our nominations out on Monday. And Cooper football actually is one of the nominees this week. So get out there and vote for your Jags. And we've added a caveat to this year, thanks to Ortho Cincy. And, there's a Team of the Season and then a Team of the Year. So once each team, each week, the winner of that week, they're then eligible for Team of the Season.
Gotcha.
So a Team of the Season is then eligible for a $500 scholarship to one of the athletes on the team. And then if they win Team of the Year after all the winter, fall, and spring sports, there's an additional $500 scholarship. So they're doling out $2,000 worth of scholarships, and, I think that's just, a little carrot to add to it.
All right. Well, Evan, we appreciate you being a East Sider over in Ohio, stopping by tonight. And reminder, check out Evan Dennison. He covers preps, does a great job with high school coverage of Link NKY, and we appreciate him spending some time with us tonight. Thanks. And I'm sure we'll see you on the side. Well, we know we'll see you. What's your game this week?
I haven't picked yet.
All right.
It's tough. I'll have to kind of go down the list. And
we know we'll see you in Fort Thomas, though, right? In a few weeks.
September 27th, without a doubt.
All right, appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Tom.
Evan Dennison, for coming. Big hand for Evan Dennison for coming out tonight. And all right, we're going to talk some Cooper football. Cam O'Hara, Dax Bolen will come up. We'll talk to the players about the big win over Ryle when we continue the Cooper football show right here at the Florence Barleycorns. Continues next. All right, we are live at Florence Barleycorns. It's a Cooper football show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers and others, like the two fine gentlemen joining me here. So we'll talk a little offense, we'll talk a little defense. Cooper with a big win, 21-14 over Ryle on Friday night, snapping a 9-game, 8-year losing streak to Ryle. And these guys will be back. So you guys have a chance to go 2-2 against Ryle with another one next year, a couple of juniors. Quarterback in the showdown game MVP, Cam O'Hara, and a defensive stalwart from the game, Dax Bolen, who came up with the ceiling interception at the end. So, Cam, we'll start with you first. So the emotions of a game like this. I mean, now, first of all, most of the time you're running for your life in the game, right? So you don't have a lot of time to think. But how weird was it to be up 14-0, know you guys probably left some points on the board, then all of a sudden you look up, it's 14-14, and you're punting to Ryle in the fourth quarter. How weird of a game emotionally was it for you guys?
Yeah, it was just a bunch of mixed feelings. We could have scored way more than we did, which is unfortunate. But just punting on fourth down when he muffed the punt, it was just the whole whirlwind of emotions was crazy.
So for you on defense, I got to ask you, you guys did a heck of a job on defense. I mean, and you had, 6 tackles. You had that big interception at the end. What was the mindset going in against Ryle, knowing they're big up front, knowing they were going to run the football, and knowing what you guys were up against? What was the mindset of the defense looking at kind of being out. I mean, they're bigger than you guys.
Yeah.
So what was the mindset going in?
Yeah, we knew they were just going to run the ball right down the middle, try to get Jacob Savage in that gap down the middle, and we had to fill in that gap and get him.
So back to you, and you're talking about, so when you get that fumble at the end, how critical was it to say, okay, we got to score a touchdown here? You'd been throwing the ball. I mean, you're like 25 of 41 for 356 yards. That's a pretty good night's work.
Yeah.
So what was and you and Isaiah and you and Jaden each had over 100 yards receiving. How big was that play and just putting you guys up and kind of sealing the win?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously gave us all the momentum. You know, we had the ball on, I think, the 30. Is that right? The 30-yard line?
Yep.
So, yeah, we always had all the momentum. You know, we know we had a good score, and we scored.
When you're being chased around like that, you were sacked 4 times, but you were rather elusive. Are you aware do you go in the huddle and go, okay, come on, man?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm running around like crazy back here. Like, you know, are you that type of exuberant guy in the huddle? Do you say things like, come on, man, block a little bit, right? I mean, did you say that?
Yeah, I think it's like all the way around. I know the receivers getting kind of frustrated too, just because all the routes were getting thrown up and stuff. But I think we knew coming into the game they were going to have a good D-line. You know, I've played them my whole life. I know Bogen is a really good player. So I knew coming into the game we're going to have some pressure. So I was already game plan for that. So, yeah.
So you know they're going to run it at you.
Yeah.
What was what was your game plan? I mean, and you guys, you think about 4 interceptions. I mean, that's pretty impressive against when they had to throw the ball. How big of a game from a confidence standpoint? The first 2 weeks, I know you guys played lights out, but let's be honest. Step up in competition. How much confidence do you take away from this game defensively?
Yeah, we were very confident going into the game. You know, Coach preached all week that we were the better team, and if we went on and played our game, that we would have it easily. And this game gave us a lot of confidence going forward and hopefully reach that state title.
Talk about Riker Campbell, the game he had a couple interceptions. Isaac Brown, who's played really well all year. What does it mean for you guys to have guys like that when you look at from a linebacking standpoint on your part and defensive backs and guys in the secondary like that?
Yeah, this is my first year playing middle linebacker, so I have a lot of good guys around me, you know, experienced guys that know what they're doing and communicating well and help me out.
Now, I know you've heard a little bit about this. You beat Ryle. Now it's time to turn your attention to Campbell County. You can't look ahead to Highlands, all that. What did that win mean for you guys? Obviously, last year you lead 10-7 and going into the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. You turn the ball over 3 times. They score 3 times. They win 28-10. How much more confidence do you take away from this game coming out on top?
Yeah, I think the confidence throughout the locker room is way better now. You know, we have bragging rights upon Ryle, which is good for everybody. And just going game by game and day by day, now we're looking at Campbell County.
So you guys realize what a miserable football weekend it was in this area? Yeah. I mean, really, it was you guys winning well on Friday night. Then UC blew a 21-point lead and lost the last second to Pitt. UK was horrific. Speaking of can't block anybody, right?
Yeah, we were at that game.
It was bad, wasn't it? It was not a good performance. And then yesterday, if you watched the Bengals attempt to play against a horrendous New England team, that was equally as bad. So, I mean, this was like, for people who are here tonight, this was probably the only football love of the weekend, right?
Yeah.
And now you got to watch Taylor Swift and all that silly-ass nonsense when they play the Chiefs. So, I mean, did you feel like that? You feel like at the end of the weekend, like, hey, man, we're the ones that won. Yeah. We won a game.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you watch the Bengals yesterday?
I didn't get to watch it, but I heard it was pretty bad.
Lucky you.
Yeah. I heard
yeah.
it was pretty bad.
So you didn't have to watch a highlight. Did you watch the highlights?
No, I didn't. I'm not gonna lie, I
didn't. Good. You're a smart man.
Yeah.
Did you watch the game yesterday?
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
So I do wonder when you guys play and you won 12 out of 15 last year, you're 3-0 this year. When you watch other games at different levels, how do you try to equate that stuff to what you guys do as a team? Like, is there a defense that when you watch in a middle linebacker, you say, that's where we need to play like that team? Is there somebody like that?
Yeah, I definitely watch all the games, watch the middle linebackers, and try to see what they're doing to see if I can incorporate it into my game. And
is there a middle linebacker for you that is somebody that you
Not really, I'd say. I just started playing football a few years ago, so I'd say learning from my teammates around me and stuff is what I've learned most of my stuff from.
Really? So you're not a lifer in football?
Yeah, this is my first year playing middle linebacker, actually.
So what got you, being a late starter in football, what got you turned on to football that wasn't at a younger age?
Some of my buddies, actually, I played 7th grade one year, and then I skipped out 8th grade. I came back freshman year, and then I battled through some injuries, so I didn't really have a full season or anything. But
well, good for you. You've done well for yourself. Now I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna bring up a quarterback's name that somebody told me you reminded them of on Friday night. Do you know who Fran Tarkenton is?
No, I do not.
You don't?
I do not know who that is. No.
Okay, well, I don't. You know, obviously Shane Beckett, and he lives in the past. He still thinks Barleycorn has gift certificates, right? So he's a few years behind everybody else. But I would agree. So Fran Tarkenton was an outstanding quarterback years ago. So I'm going to ask you tonight to go look at some video.
Okay.
He was known for scrambling, avoiding rushes, and making great throws.
Got you.
So check that out.
I got you.
So
Definitely.
now let me ask you, quarterback-wise, is there one that you go, that's my guy, that maybe even in the past or somebody today?
Oh yeah, I think I spoke on this last time, but Aaron Rodgers.
Right. So now let me ask you that tonight. How's he going to fare?
Repeat the question. What did you say? I'm sorry.
How's Aaron Rodgers going to fare in Monday Night Football tonight? Because it's the Jets, and the Jets are still the Jets until they're not the Jets, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think he'll be fine. You know, he's got to do his job. They play the 49ers, right?
Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah, that's a good defense, so I think they'll be fine.
luck to him.
I think he'll be fine. He's a really good player, and I look up to him. But I think.
Now, what is it about his game? I mean, he's confident, right? I mean, he's always been very confident. I mean, obviously he's an outstanding quarterback, but what is it about the way he plays quarterback that you kind of go, that's my guy?
Yeah, I think he's definitely like advanced the way people look at quarterbacks and how people play the position. You know, just the different arm angles he throws at, and the amount of like crazy balls he throws is crazy.
You had to do some of that on Friday night. All right, so for everybody out there, I'll ask a final question, and you guys, I'm sure, will be back before the end of the year, but when you look at the defense and you get, Campbell County, and then you got Great Crossing and Highlands, do you guys as a defense week to week come up with new goals? Do you set, hey, this, going into this game, we want to do A, B, and C? Is that something you do week to week?
Yeah.
And if so, coming out of the Ryle game, what do you want to accomplish this week against Campbell County?
yeah, definitely. Coach always preached that every week we got to get at least 3 turnovers. So last week we got 4, but Campbell County turned the ball over 7 times their last game, so that's really important for us.
Actually, you lost count. You had 5.
5.
4 interceptions, so you had 5.
Yep.
Say for you on offense, do you set numbers? Do you set parameters? Do you set goals going into a game each week?
Yeah, I think it's more trying to establish the run. Everybody knows we can obviously throw the ball, but being able to run the ball and establish the run play. Will just make everything easier for us.
Well, let me give you how about if I give you a modest running goal this week?
Okay.
At the end of the game, when you look at the stat sheets, there isn't a dash in front of the rushing goals.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Is that okay?
We can make that happen, yeah.
All right. Well, I got to tell you guys, I'd be remiss. One final question. How is that atmosphere? I mean, I know you've played in front of some big crowds. Last year was a lot of excitement, but Cam, you first, and then Dax, you next. What was that like all throughout the game? And Coach Borchers is right. Sometimes there are big crowds, but there's not a lot of enthusiasm. I thought the enthusiasm from start to finish was off the charts.
Yeah, coming to the game, we knew Coach was telling us that it was going to be packed. It was going to be the biggest atmosphere we played in. How last year Highlands was really a big atmosphere, but as a player, I can't really even look at that. I don't pay attention to it because it's just I'm just too focused into the game. But on the sideline, I could just tell you can hear everybody on the sideline.
And what about for you when you looked across the way? I mean, at least you're facing all the stands, right? So when you're looking over there, you had to think to yourself, man, this is pretty cool. I mean, that's what high school football should be about on Friday nights.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was definitely the craziest game I've ever been at playing-wise. There were so many people in the stands, and I knew it was going to be like that. It was just what I expected. Well,
and hopefully there's plenty more like that. Cam O'Hara, Dax Bolen, 2 of the key cogs in Friday night's 21-14 Cooper win. So congrats to you guys, and we'll welcome up Coach Borchers. One final segment, a preview of Campbell County, and we will go from there because we do have Monday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and I know despite the Disney dispute, Barleycorns has made it possible for you to be able to watch that game tonight if you want to hang out here a little bit later. So the Cooper Football Show continues right here from the Florence Barleycorns. All right, our final segment here, the Cooper Football Show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers and others. Thanks to Cam O'Hara and Dax Bolen for coming up here, and thanks to Evan Dennison for Link NKY. And ranking Cooper number 1. Hard not. I mean, that's rankings will get you nowhere in the end, but nonetheless, it's. Were you surprised to see that Boyle County score? Did you even see that?
I did. Yeah. I know they said how good St. Ed's was, but I really didn't know much about them. So.
Well, they're always. I mean, they are
always in there.
Yes, but Boyle County's pretty darn good too.
Yeah.
Now, Friday night, 7 o'clock kickoff. Reminder: 7 o'clock kickoff at Campbell County, and they got a nice facility and easy drive over the AA, assuming what time you leave.
As long as we don't hit traffic, right?
Oh yeah, there is that traffic. Yeah, sure. But so this is one of those. These guys seem focused, and it seems like, and I think that's you've got some good leaders on this football team, but and you can do so much as coaches, but how much do you turn to your guys in the middle of a season, coming off a big win like that, to say we're gonna put it on them and let them, be leaders and kind of galvanize the guys and know how important it is just to take it, that sad old cliche, one game at a time.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between having decent leaders and great leaders. When you got great leaders, those leaders just take care of it. You don't even really have to tell them anything. And, we got some great leaders on this football team, and those guys just kind of, they have a good heartbeat of the locker room, and they take care of things. So, I'll talk to them every now and then just to say, hey, how's things going, anything we need to know about. But, we know those guys are taking care of what the business out in the locker room, and we don't have to worry about it.
Final question, if you look at the first 3 games, what has been one thing that has been a pleasant surprise, and what's been something else that you're not pleased with, something that needs to get better that maybe you even thought would be better currently than it is?
I think the thing that I'm most pleased with is when you looked at, we put some points on the board last year. We did some yardage, but it was mostly 2 guys that did all of it as far as at the receiver position with Isaiah and Austin. And now you look at this year, we have a lot of other kids stepping up. You got Jaden, which is tied for our leading rusher or receiver, and last year he was our 3rd or 4th receiver. So, then you got Malachi Ewell and Riker Campbell, which are both up almost in double-digit receptions. So, we're distributing the ball a lot more. And you mentioned it earlier about the run game. Our running game will come. If you look at last year, it was really after the Highlands game that we started to get going. And, we got a very young line, inexperienced line. So it's going to take us a little bit of time. And to be honest with you, with how good our passing game has been with having Cam at the helm, our goal, we're going to do what teams give us, and if they're going to give us the pass, we're going to take it. And we know that eventually teams are going to start to shut that down. That's when we're going to have to turn to the run game. And, Keegan proved last year that he's one heck of a back. And,
no question, yeah.
And there were some of those games once we got to the playoffs that, we kind of rode him, and he won a couple of those games for us.
All right, a couple of reminders about next week. Want to thank, first of all, Evan Dennison for Lincoln KY for coming out tonight. Lance McAllister, who's the host of Sports Talk on 700 WLW. He will be, and a proponent of Barleycorns, I might add. He will join us next week. We'll get his perspective on all sorts of nonsense, as he can only do. And want to see everybody back here because, again, if it wasn't for you folks coming out, there'd be no reason to do this. So we appreciate it. And check it out when it gets posted on YouTube if you want to watch it again. But we'll be back to break down the Campbell County game and preview Great Crossing and return to home. So we'll do all that next Monday, and hang tight because we've got some giveaways momentarily. But thanks to everybody for coming out tonight, and congrats again to the Jaguars for the 21-14 win over Ryle and the 3-0 start. So for Randy Borchers, I'm Tom Gamble. This has been the Cooper Football Show live at the Florence Barleycorn.